In this podcast episode, Professor Inger Kuin dives deeply into the fascinating world of ancient philosophy by exploring the life and teachings of Diogenes of Sinope, a central figure in Cynicism. The conversation traces the intricate relationships between Cynicism, Stoicism, and Epicureanism, examining how these philosophies overlap and diverge. Queen sheds light on the historical, cultural, and philosophical contexts that shaped Diogenes, the evolution of Cynicism into Stoicism, and the enduring relevance of these ancient thinkers. The episode also touches on how the modern understanding of cynicism diverges sharply from its philosophical roots. Diogenes emerged from a wealthy but troubled background in Sinope, a Black Sea city, before his exile pushed him to Athens, the intellectual capital of the ancient world, where he fully embraced philosophy. His lifestyle was famously austere and provocative, famously living in a large ceramic jar and practicing radical simplicity. His reputation for shamelessness and defiance of social conventions made him both a disruptive figure and an incisive social critic. Kuin discusses how Diogenes' actions and anecdotes serve as performative philosophy, outrageous stunts designed to shock and make people reconsider societal norms. This includes his direct challenge to figures of power, such as Alexander the Great, which symbolizes the profound power of personal freedom and indifference to external status. A pivotal story discussed is the oft-debated encounter between Diogenes and Alexander the Great, where the philosopher reportedly tells the emperor to "get out of my sunlight." Kuin unpacks historical skepticism surrounding this anecdote, but ultimately argues for its plausibility based on surviving textual evidence and context. The story resonates as a symbolic clash between worldly conquest and conquering one's need for worldly possessions, highlighting the unique powerlessness as empowerment that defines Diogenes' philosophy. The podcast delves into the essential differences and connections between Cynicism and Stoicism. While Stoicism directly descends from Cynicism through Zeno and his teacher Crates, who was influenced by Diogenes, the Stoics made conscious efforts to distance themselves from the socially disruptive lifestyle of Cynics. Kuhn explains that the key philosophical divergence lies in Stoicism's belief in a divine, rational order governing the cosmos, contrasted with Cynicism's rejection of such overarching organizing principles. Cynics viewed social institutions and conventions as artificial constructs open to challenge and reform, whereas Stoics advocated adapting oneself to the natural and social order. Kuin also highlights the subtle conservatism inherent in Stoicism versus the radical questioning attitude of the Cynics. A nuanced comparison unfolds around social mores and morality. Diogenes treated many societal rules, such as those governing public behavior, as petty etiquette rather than moral imperatives. For him, public masturbation might not be immoral, just socially absurd. By contrast, Stoics saw etiquette as essential to social cohesion, moral order, and justice. This reflects their acceptance of the status quo as the best possible outcome, while Cynics remain critical of existing arrangements, questioning their necessity and justice. While praising Diogenes' radical independence, the episode acknowledges the practical limitations of his lifestyle if universally adopted. A society composed solely of people living as Cynics would lack the coordination and infrastructure necessary for civilization. Yet Queen and the host agree that a society absent of such radical critics is far more dangerous, as it stifles necessary questioning, innovation, and challenges to injustice. Kuin emphasizes that Diogenes was not a hypocrite or nihilist, but a sincere idealist who accepted his own human flaws and did not pretend to be perfect. Unlike the later negative vernacular use of cynic, Diogenes was transparent about his inconsistencies and did not expect others to copy him to the letter, but to be inspired by his spirit. This acceptance of impurity allowed him to maintain honesty while pressing society to rethink conventions. The discussion touches on the similarities Cynicism shares with Epicureanism, particularly their withdrawal from political life and rejection of societal values. Both philosophies prioritize personal contentment and minimizing desires, though Epicureans sought tranquility in secluded gardens, while Cynics pursued public provocation and radical honesty. Stoicism stands apart by encouraging active participation in society and fulfilling social duties. Even when these contradict personal preferences, thus embracing pragmatism and responsibility within political frameworks. The podcast tracks the transformation of Stoicism as it became institutionalized within Roman elite society, losing some of the radical edge it inherited from Cynicism. Early Stoics were closer in spirit to Cynics like Diogenes, but later figures such as Seneca and Marcus Aurelius adopted a more conservative tone, reconciling themselves to political realities and social hierarchy. Kuin highlights how figures like Epictetus, a Stoic slave and former outsider, retained a sharper connection to Cynic ideals. An important point raised is the comparatively more inclusive stance of Cynicism towards women. Diogenes' immediate circle included notable female philosophers like Hipparchia, who challenged gender norms by actively participating in philosophy. Stoicism, while advocating a universal capacity for virtue, generally aligned with prevailing Roman social structures, tending to marginalize women's roles within philosophical and civic life. This reflects the broader conservatism of later Stoicism compared to the more egalitarian radicalism of Cynicism. Kuin discusses how, beginning in the 18th and 19th centuries, the term cynic morphed from its original philosophical identity into a pejorative describing skepticism, hypocrisy, or nihilism, attributes mostly alien to Diogenes' actual philosophy. This semantic shift roots back to Rousseau's contradictory reputation and the intellectual currents of the Enlightenment, which distorted the term's meaning. The episode stresses that the uppercase cynic, as Diogenes and his followers were committed idealists who sought a virtuous life through radical means. Throughout the episode, Kuin shares favorite anecdotes that capture the essence of Diogenes' provocative and candid nature. Stories such as his readiness to endure rejection while begging, or his frank acknowledgement of having once pissed his bed, illustrate his humor, transparency, and resilience. These moments serve not merely as entertaining tales, but as profound philosophical statements about freedom, humility, and continuous self-improvement. A contrast is drawn between Diogenes' blunt, performative style and Socrates' dialectical method. While Socratic conversations often unfolded with gradual questioning, leading interlocutors to realize their own errors, sometimes at the end leaving them disoriented, Diogenes' approach was direct, immediate, and often absurd. His theatrical antics were aimed at instantly breaking complacency and provoking reflection, making philosophy accessible as a lived public performance rather than an abstract interrogation. The dialogue emphasizes the powerful resonance of Diogenes' philosophy today, underscoring how his critiques of consumerism, social convention, and power remain strikingly relevant in contemporary society flooded with excess and pretense. Kuin marvels at the survival of these ancient anecdotes and their capacity to distill timeless truths with remarkable clarity, transcending centuries of cultural change. The conversation closes by appreciating Diogenes' unique ability to unsettle and transform perspectives in one sharp moment, like a philosophical anthem.